Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. This is The Wake Up. We got a lot of stuff coming your way today. Talking about Harvey Weinstein, the MeToo movement, everything, how that has influenced politics today. The return of tonight's, really the return of intense political elections. Tonight's special election is going to be very, very interesting in North Carolina. We'll take a look at that for you. We're also talking about an awkward spy story and the continuation of Sharpiegate and Brexit. So we've got a lot of stuff to come in our way on the show today. But we start off with Me Too, and of course the big movement that is going on, and a very interesting new book, I guess, out there. They have a new book. This is Jodi Kantor and Megan Twohey. They have a new book detailing Harvey Weinstein's decade-long track record of alleged sexual assault and harassment. Almost 2 years after Kantor and Twohey broke the story that sparked Me Too and its movement, the seismic social change, it's still influencing politics as not so usual. So, the key to change, Kantor and Twohey wrote in the book, was a new sense of accountability. The book is called She Said. So, yeah, definitely very interesting. So, but last night in North Carolina, in a sign that Trump family remains unconcerned about the political reckoning from a wave of women speaking out about male misbehavior, Donald Trump Jr. made a Me Too joke about his dad's campaign rally. So he says, with the incredible comedic timing that Don Jr. was just born with, he says to a Fayetteville crowd last night after kissing his girlfriend disgustingly, really, Kim Guilfoyle, noting that she'd consent to it. Kimberly, she says, "I won't be getting Me Too this evening, all right?" It's like kissing your girlfriend now gets you Me Too. Apparently, this is the idea. Probably the crowd went crazy for that. Kimberly may Me Too me later, but that's a different story, which is like, ooh, oh wow, dude, wow. Here.
Regardless, it's a horrible situation, but we hope to shine.
All right, I'm trying to get. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to find that clip, but anyway, that is the rally from last night that he had in Fayetteville, North Carolina. But that Trump Jr. introed for. Women are feeling that difference. This is a newfound currency of accountability, along with the election of Donald Trump and the political awakening of many female voters that followed. The political awakening that really has shifted previously accepted parameters of what women and victims of assault and harassment expect from candidates and campaigns. There's really been some real changes, some pushes in the right direction, but it's not with really the Republican Party and the Trump campaign. Some people in the Republican Party, though, they still have had to kind of resign. They've had to be pushed out in some respects, I believe, but it has not been a very high number of people. Which is an important thing to realize there. There are candidates that are literally not viable today who would have been viable before the Me Too movement, and candidates who have paid a significant price in terms of having to resign, such as, like people like Al Franken, John Conyers, who is a former leader of the CBC Congressional Black Caucus. They want their voices heard, and Me Too movement has empowered that. So Sarah Chamberlain, the president of Republican Main Street Partnership and the founder of Women to Women National Conversations Tour. We are 52% of the population, and it's resonating in our politics. We're not just survivors, right? We're a constituency, and we're a base, says Tarana Burke, a civil rights activist who founded the Me Too movement, which is it's really a great way of looking at it. These are people who have, like, they want to see some change. They're people who, and again, no way you could possibly begin to consider women voters a monolith. That'd just be stupid. They're divided evenly, probably, I would say, among the population, just like everybody else is. Like, there's plenty of women who are pro-abortion, plenty of Republican women. So maybe there's a little bit more Democratic women. I don't even know. But the truth remains that it's very, very not everything's always the same, always the way you want it to be. So that's an important thing to take into some consideration. So just this past summer, magazine columnist E. Jean Carroll became the 16th woman to come forward with allegations of sexual misconduct against Trump, claiming she attacked her in a dressing room in the mid-90s. The news really landed with barely a political whimper, and you just cannot get accountability from Donald Trump. With Republicans and even some Democrats, again, they were remaining largely silent. The official position of Trump's White House is the allegations obviously are untrue. But strategists told the forces that gave rise to Me Too have changed the political calculus headed into 2020, even if the president is indirectly affected. The gender gap is real, according to polling. Suburban women aren't happy with the way the GOP is talking with them, says Chamberlain, who has been traveling the country to meet with the focus group in that demographic, really. So that's going to be interesting, because that was one of the main reasons that Trump won the election. And I mean, not just always because of economically anxious people. It was really because of the fact that there was a lot of suburban voters who Hillary was trying to go for, but absolutely failed to pick up, because that was her strategy, right? It was like, get the modern. Get the swing voters, you'll be all right. If you just get the suburban swing voters, the mythical moderate swing voters, that strategy worked for the Democrats in 2018, but failed miserably for Hillary Clinton in 2016. So it's interesting. So it's all very, very interesting. So it's definitely not a very reliable strategy. She pretty much completely ignored the working class again, one of many, many problems that they have with Hillary Clinton. But it's not the point. What is the point is there are a lot of people in this suburban women group who are feeling really uncomfortable, which is a big, big deal. You have college educated women turning against Trump, and at the last minute in 2016, they bounced back. In 2018, they voted solidly Democratic, and in 2020, it looks like they'll do the same, says Lake. This is I don't know what, this is a guy named Lake talking. I don't know who it is. Sorry about that. A 2017 study by the nonpartisan Barbara Lee Family Foundation and Lake's firm showed the issue of sexual harassment has a potential to make a real difference at the ballot box, which is something you never really would have thought before this whole Me Too movement went down. 52% of voters agree that they would never vote for a person accused of sexual harassment. Wow. And 51% of voters agree that they would never vote for someone who didn't make addressing sexual harassment a priority per the study. So, it's a really high, seemingly low amount that 52% of voters say they wouldn't vote for someone accused of sexual harassment. Like, this seems, that's the very disturbing situation that we have going on there. That's pretty much the main problem. We tested a number of messages that questioned or belittled the Me Too movement and did very poorly with voters, including this is a low priority message. That type of messaging did very poorly. So it's pretty much what she's saying is like the idea that this is Amanda Hunter, the foundation's communication director. This is Barbara Lee Foundation's communication director. This is not a niche issue. Voters across the board agree that sexual harassment is a serious problem and should be easier to report in the workplace. So yeah, and they think, which is interesting, they think not only that, but it should be a high priority too. Also, by the way, 2020 starts tonight. Look no further than tonight's election in North Carolina for your politics fix, where Donald Trump Jr., President Trump, and Vice President Pence rallied on Monday night for the first electoral test of the way women split the vote going into 2020. Democratic candidate Dan McCready is running against UP candidate Dan Bishop for a seat that President Trump won by 12 points in 2016. Trump is out there trying to drive out rural voters, but then there's suburban women. Do they turn out and vote for the GOP? That is the test, because again, Trump isn't on the ballot. It's this guy Dan Bishop for this incredibly kind of risky and tough to make too much of a judgment off this election, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because the last election in that district was, again, incredibly corrupt, incredibly really kind of BS, but that's the thing. So yeah, former congressional candidate Jon Ossoff said he will challenge Republican U.S. Senator David Perdue in amount of ruthless assault on corruption on our political system that's prevented Congress from addressing urgent issues, said the Atlanta Journal-Constitution's Greg Bluestein. Ossoff's campaign, which he will formally announce Tuesday, makes him the fourth Democrat in the race against Perdue, a first-term Republican, and a former Fortune 500 chief executive with strong ties to President Donald Trump. He also becomes the best-known contender thanks to his nationally watched campaign in Georgia's 6th district, if you don't remember. It's all very, very inspiring stuff from Jon Ossoff's campaign and how we plan to take back the Senate. Like, I'm so glad we have Jon Ossoff running. I feel really safe. Anyway, we now turn to our government and our agencies, where the Sharpie Gate saga continues. The Secretary of Commerce threatened to fire top employees at federal scientific agencies responsible for weather forecasts last Friday after the agency's Birmingham office contradicted. You can't contradict the madman, President Donald Trump's claim that Hurricane Dorian might hit Alabama, threatened to literally fire them. The threat came as a weird unsigned statement. That the threat led to an unusual unsigned statement later Friday by the agency. Really kind of did it shock people who work there. NOAA disavowed the National Weather Service's position that Alabama was not at risk. So pretty much literally like saying something that's not even true just to back up the it's insane. It's absolutely insane. NOAA's statement on Friday is now being examined by the Commerce Department's offices of the Inspector General, according to documents reviewed by the New York Times, and the employees have been asked to preserve their files. NOAA is the division of the Commerce Department. So, yeah, that is pretty crazy. Three former NOAA administrators weigh in. If political appointees overrule trained scientists imposing political concerns on scientific matters, then they endanger public safety as well as the credibility and morale of the agencies charged with protecting that safety. So that's a great way of putting it there from former Administrator Jane Lubchenco and James Baker and Catherine Sullivan, all writing in a post-op-ed about that. All right, pretty crazy story right now going on with the Kremlin. The U.S. had a spy with direct access to Putin. Decades ago, the CIA recruited and carefully cultivated a mid-level Russian official who began rapidly advancing through the governmental ranks. Eventually, American spies struck gold. The longtime source had an influential position that came with access to the highest level of the Kremlin. Report the New York Times as Julian E. Barnes, Adam Goldman, and David Sanger. That source was now had to be exfiltrated. So, given the New York Times has made has now made the details on the Russian spy public, I can now report additional info that we had withheld. With direct access to Vladimir Putin, including remarkable ability to take photos of presidential documents, had served U.S. for more than a decade. So that's what they were doing. The source was the key to the intel community's findings on Russian interference in 2016. So he was a pretty big guy, very, very big in the CIA's plan. So what happened? What's the story here? CIA became worried that spy was in danger and needed to remove that operative from Russia. The exfiltration took place sometime after an Oval Office meeting in May 2017 when President Trump revealed highly classified information on counterterrorism information to Russian foreign minister and ambassadors, said the current and former officials speaking on the condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive operation. Trump wasn't completely to blame, though. The disclosure alarmed U.S. national security officials, but it was not the reason for the decision to remove the CIA asset, who had provided information to the United States for more than a decade. But those even aren't the craziest details. According to NBC News, the former CIA asset is living in the D.C. metro area. He will now most likely be moved, as the Russians have previously attempted to kill those who help foreign intelligence services even after they leave Moscow. See the British guy who got poisoned at a park bench. As an NBC News correspondent went to the man's house and rang his doorbell, said NBC's Ken Delaney, 5 minutes later, 2 young men in an SUV came racing up the street and parked immediately adjacent to the correspondent's car. The former senior national security official said the men were likely U.S. government agents monitoring the Russian's house. So it looks like that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to keep out for him and find out what's going on, because it looks like they're always in the area, which is interesting. So that is definitely a story that's a real-life spy thriller. Definitely way more interesting than anything happening with Russia, but that's that. But we now turn to Brexit and the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson's dreams of an election that would clear his path to Brexit by the end of October were very, very unfortunately dashed by after midnight Tuesday morning, leaving him with no obvious means of making good on his vow of a do-or-die exit from the European Union. Latest obstacle of Johnson's plans comes from the yet another defeat in the House of Commons, where the once swaggering Prime Minister has lost every key vote of his young premiership. So that is it's gonna be tough to deal with if you're Boris Johnson. And the problem now is he can't